Welcome to the ArmaniTalks YouTube channel, the #1 YouTube channel for you to level up your communication skills, learn the art of public speaking, social skills, and personal branding to take your message to the world. Today's episode, we're entering the world of personal branding, and I'm going to teach you how to rep your personal brand offline and online. One of the best ways to do this is by becoming smarter. And when we think smart, the very first thing that we think is, all right, someone that gets straight A's, right? But ask yourself, is that an accurate definition of smart? Once you get out there in the real world, is anyone asking you, hey, fam, what'd you get in high school? What was your GPA? Well, what about your SAT scores? They don't ask you that stuff in the real world. And at times, what we notice is that there's individuals who take so much pride in their academic life that they start neglecting the street smart side to them. If you were to ask me, in terms of being truly intelligent, you need to have a mix of book smarts and street smarts. Book smarts is what we're taught in school. Learn about the academic stuff, learn to read books, learn to study, do all of that. In the street smarts world, it's more about the stuff that we don't learn. Communication skills, how to control your emotions, how to be creative. These are stuff that you don't necessarily learn. It's stuff that you discover within yourself. The beauty is when you combine these two worlds. Because some people, they choose, oh, well, I'm a book smarts kind of guy, forget the street smarts. And other individuals say, well, I'm street smarts, forget books, I don't need any of that. You want to be both. So that's what smart comes down to. That's my personal definition. Someone who is book smarts and street smarts. But what you want to do is you want to ask yourself, what do I consider smart in terms of my life? Because if you don't decide on a definition, and it doesn't have to be a specific definition, to be honest, it's better if it's kind of vague. When it's vague, what's happening is you're more flexible. You're more willing to change. Because for me, this book smarts, street smarts combined, that's a very general definition. Armani, why don't you get more specific? Because I don't want to get more specific. This right here, this generality allows my mind to absorb more. But what I did is I did give it a definition. So I made it specific towards the knowledge of smart, but I didn't make it too specific. So this is good news for you because you can just gather some descriptions by introspecting, by asking yourself, what is smart in terms of my personal life? And that's only something that you can do because only you know the experiences, emotions, and all the other stuff that you've personally been through. So that's the very beginning stage. What is your definition of smart? Armani, now are those the tips? No, that's the mindset that you want to have in the early stages. Now, I'm going to drop to you 3 unorthodox tips on how you can improve your intelligence. The beauty about these tips is that I don't really care what your definition is because these 3 tips that I'm about to give you will wrap around your personal definition no matter how you look at it. And the reason I say it's unorthodox is because this isn't traditionally what you see. Some of the advice may seem counterintuitive. Wait, Armani, I've heard this thing my entire life and you're telling me to do the exact opposite? That's correct. And wait for the advice that seems like the opposite because it'll stick out. I'm going to see if you're paying attention. So with that being said, let's get started on these 3 tips. But before we do, make sure you drop a like for me right on below because each like helps this channel grow. All right, the first thing, this one is the more obvious one, is to have some semblance of a life purpose. And the reason that the life purpose helps you in terms of becoming more intelligent is because it allows you to create a filter for yourself and target that information that you gain towards a brand new goal. When you do something like this, what happens is that you become more creative in the process. Let me just give you an example. Kobe Bryant, when he entered the NBA, one of his grand goals was to become the greatest basketball player of all time. A grand goal, but at least it gave his mind a target. Now from there, all the information that he was sucking in, absorbing, what happens is that it was aiding him towards this goal. And some of the information you wouldn't ever assume to be related to basketball. One example of this is when he had to guard Allen Iverson. And for their past few matchups, Allen Iverson was torching Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant knew, look, I said I want to be the greatest basketball player of all time, and I can't even guard Allen Iverson? This is an issue. I need to learn to see how I can guard Allen Iverson. So within the next few weeks, you would think that he was learning from basketball players, basketball film, or something basketball related, right? No, that wasn't the case. The way that he figured out how to guard Allen Iverson was watching film of sharks hunting seals on the African coast. Now, for a rational mind, no one would ever think that sharks and seals tie into basketball. But for Kobe Bryant, since he set a target for his mind, he was able to perceive that information in a completely different light. Because in the information age, it's not information that is gold, it's wisdom. It's the ability to make sense of certain things in relationship to your life. Which is why there's certain times that you may read a book and you may think, whoa, this book is dope. Everyone else must think it's dope too. Then you give that book to one of your friends and your friend says, that book was pure rubbish. It was bullshit. Why? It's because the way that we perceive information is different case by case by case. And if you want to be one of these individuals who's truly smart, you want to give yourself a grand life goal. Now, the people that pretend to be smart, you know what they do? They just absorb a whole bunch of information and they just recite it. They recite a lot of facts. Well, did you know that back in this day, this happened? Well, what about this? This happened, this happened. Sure, they know a lot of information, but are they smart? No, they just memorized a bunch of stuff and they're just sort of sharing it. But there's no practicalities behind that. So the very first thing that you want to realize is that this small change in your thinking, where you're giving yourself a big goal, morphs your life in a completely different realm, where you start perceiving information in a much higher degree of complexity. You start connecting different dots that you never thought was possible. Just like Kobe Bryant was able to connect the world of sharks and seals with basketball, you'll be able to do something similar in context to your life. And if you ask me, that's smart. So that's advice number one. Advice number two, this is the one that's unorthodox, but bear with me. This advice is where I say, don't listen to advice so much, and for mentors, ditch them. What I mean by this is that you shouldn't wait to begin something until you have a mentor. It was somewhere in the mid 2010s or like early 2010s where this whole mentor mania started to skyrocket. And the reason that it started to skyrocket was because there was a lot of these ads that were coming out where people were sharing stories about how the most successful people in the world have mentors. Now that's true. They have mentors, but what you'll also realize is that some of these most successful people, they also learn from the world. What you'll notice is that at times, if you're an artist or you're a personal brand, for example, you have a YouTube channel, taking too much advice is counterproductive and it starts to make you dependent on this other human. You start to think, oh, well, I don't know if I should be making this decision without running it by this individual. Individual is going to save me a lot of time. One of the main reasons that we try to look for mentors in the beginning stages is so we can save time. While in reality, if you want to learn any skill set inside and out, you should be trying to spend time. Spending time requires you to fail and fail a bunch. There's going to be times where you are thinking, damn man, only if I had a mentor, they would have short-circuited me through the process. They would have told me what to do and what not to do. I would have saved so much time. That's true for certain fields. For example, you want to save time. And I'll just give you an example once again. In terms of my brand, if it comes down to storytelling, I want to learn that inside and out. I don't necessarily need 1 to 2 mentors on that. The world is my mentor. But once it comes down to dealing with a lot of the technical stuff for my website, I don't want to know about that right now. I want to have surface level knowledge, but if a certain thing crashes, if certain plugins need to be updated, and there's certain code that's not working, then I'll hire someone for that. And if they want to mentor me, they can. The thing is, this is a field that I don't want to dedicate too much time into for the time being. I want to dedicate everything for storytelling. So for storytelling, I don't need a mentor. I'll figure this out on my own, inside and out, to a point where now it's like, whoa, I'm learning so much more from different entities that I never thought was possible. While for the stuff that I'm not as interested in, yeah, I'll get a mentor or I'll get a consultant to take care of it. Now, this is a counterintuitive advice because it's polarizing. Some people are going to be like, nah, I need this mentor. No way in hell am I getting rid of it. That's completely fine. The other group is going to be like, all right, I see what Armani's saying. He's saying that the world is your mentor. And once you have the first part that Armani said, the life purpose, now you start understanding that you can learn from anyone. It's not a particular entity in your profession that you only have to learn from. It's too rigid. And when you're too rigid, you start falling into belief traps. You start creating set beliefs when you're supposed to be sucking in information and allowing your mind to be dynamic. So that's 2. Avoid being so reliant on mentors. Mentor yourself. Now 3, it's not going to be rocket science, yet for some of us it may be rocket science. In the information age, learn how to use the internet. Learning how to use the internet is huge, mainly because all the information that you need to know is already there. And if you follow the first 2 advice in sequence, you'll realize that it perfectly sets you up for this advice. You set a life purpose. So now at this point, you're starting to perceive information in a different way, which allows you to not be reliant on just one particular mentor or 2 particular mentors. Instead, you have an evolved perception that allows you to absorb information from different parts of the world. You can learn from humans, you can learn from animals, you can learn from nature, etc. Now these are 2. Now the third part is you're starting to think, all right, well, when I get a question, where am I going to go? You're going to go to the internet. The thing is that the internet is sort of like the highway. We often just go on it, but we don't know how to use it. In the modern days, the people that are going to be the smartest are the individuals who know the concept of interleaving learning. Interleaving learning is when you are able to learn multiple different subjects and you're able to connect it. What Kobe Bryant did with the whole sharks and seals and connecting with basketball was a form of interleaving learning. And you'll start to realize this on your own. You don't even have to do interleaving learning in the beginning stages. You'll realize that it's something that just starts to manifest on its own. Any field that you delve into for long enough, you realize that it starts connecting to another field and another field and another field. If you are, say, in the sales industry and you have to start learning how to sell, not only do you have to learn how to sell your particular product, that may be the knowledge that you start off with in the beginning. But later on in the game, you'll notice yourself learning more about psychology. You'll also be learning about how to listen more properly. And you'll be learning about other famous salespeople. And what you're doing here is you are learning about one hierarching subject, aka sales, but then you start webbing it with other things as well. Psychology, emotional intelligence, past sales individuals. That is interleaving learning, and the internet sets up the perfect platform for that. But you need to use your judgment because there's a lot of bullshit information on the internet as well. No one's going to be able to tell you, hey, this is good information in context to your life. This is bad information in context to your life. That's why I told you to do the first two from the get-go, so the internet starts to morph into something completely different. While others are using it to just read memes all day, to give themselves social anxiety, to exercise their distraction muscle, you're using it to connect, to build a web, to do interleaving learning to a point where you just end up becoming smarter. If you have curiosity, if you stop listening to just one particular person and you have a life purpose, then the internet starts to become a goldmine of information that you can learn from. So those are the three main tips. I'm going to give you one fourth bonus tip just because you've been patient. You've made it this far in the episode. The bonus tip is that you want to start becoming a creator. I often say that communication skills makes you smarter because it's forcing you to delve into concepts and to prove to yourself whether or not you know it. If I didn't make this video and in my mind I'm just thinking, yeah, I know 3 ways to become smarter, then those concepts in my mind are vague. Sure, I can clarify it over time, but to speed up the process, I can just speak it. I can make a video about it, which is forcing me to hammer home the concepts. So great communicators, you realize, start to become very smart over time. It's because they're constantly creating. The more that you create, the more that you're starting to turn very ambiguous subjects into clarity. That's what being smart is all about. And once you communicate it enough times, you start realizing that you can teach others. And when you teach others, they'll ask you certain questions that makes you think, oh, I never thought about it like that. And now you're reevaluating the concepts from a brand new paradigm. Learn to create. That's the bonus tip. So just a quick little recap. The first thing is that you want a life purpose to a certain degree. You're not going to be born with it. You just need to cultivate it. And what that'll do is that it'll allow you to start perceiving information in a brand new lens. Rather than flooding yourself with everything out there, you start having the right information because you gave your mind a target. The second thing is to not be so reliant on mentors. Don't just listen to advice from one particular person because they're giving you advice from their lens, from their experiences, not necessarily yours. Don't try to use so much time to save time. Instead, spend time on the skill sets that you truly desire to learn. This allows you to learn from the entire world, whether it's humans, animals, nature, etc. The third tip is to learn how to use the internet. The internet is a web of information. The internet is actually not just a thing, it's a concept. You'll notice nowadays if you Google images, internet, neural pathways, when you zoom out, the earth seems like it's developing a brain. It seems like neural pathways are just connecting with one another. And that right there is what we know as the internet. So if you think about it, there's certain spirituality towards this as well, because you're seeing this thing, entity, evolving in real time. Don't just waste your time on the internet. Instead, use it to become smarter by doing a thing called interleaving learning. If you did the first two, then interleaving learning is going to manifest on its own as long as you're using the internet correctly. Now, the fourth tip is to become a creator. invest in your communication skills and do your best to sharpen it every single day, whether it's writing, whether it's making videos, making podcasts, whatever the case is. Oh, I don't have any content for my personal brand. Yeah, you do. You have yourself. You are the only content for your personal brand. And if you follow the tips that I gave you in this video, then you're going to become smarter. And as you become smarter, content creation becomes easy. It becomes fun. It's not something that you have to spend hours and hours thinking about beforehand. It's something that you just do because you're just reporting back on your life. That's it. So content creation, you become smarter, you can build a business. I mean, you're just combining a web. And that's what the smart person is able to do. They're able to create a web of concepts to a point where eventually they make one realization. All this out here, it's all connected. There's one big truth out there, and we all find different paths to leading to that big truth. How you do it is how you will ultimately define what being smart means to you. So level up your mentality. If you want more practical insights into the world of how to become smarter, make sure you sign up for my free daily newsletter in the description box right on below. Daily emails to help you become sharper, become a better communicator, and learn how to tell stories with grace. Thank you for joining the ArmaniTalks YouTube channel. I'll catch you on the next episode.